I ask you first of all, Clint, your experiences shooting in that part of the country.
Well, it was fabulous. I got the idea to use Alberta when I was up there the winter before with my son. We were skiing at Lake Louise area, and it was so pleasant, and I'd been reminded about how nice the country was. And also the province of Alberta has a lot of variations in look, going from the Rockies look to the plains, stark plains, which are very very nice areas.
There's a scene in the movie where you, as an outlaw, retired to the high country to regroup, and it's snowing up there. Was that planned in the script originally?
No, that wasn't planned. It wasn't written for snow, but it looked great, and there was no reason to it to not shoot it that way. So that was just a pure piece of luck, because after I did it, I was really pleased with it. Snow gave it a little variation.
You got a hold of this script something like 10 years ago, and hung on to it and hung on to it and finally made it. What was it about the story that appealed to you?
It was extremely appealing writing to me. I liked it, and I liked the variations of the various characters, and the fact that every character had a point of view and felt that they were doing the right thing. Whether they were on the right side is up to the audience to determine. But it also had a statement about the morality of killing too, and the consequences that happen, that it causes when they get started. It wasn't just a lot of shooting people off the top of buildings that go on in westerns normally, and even some of the ones I've done, like, it's quite different for me in that aspect. But it had just a really good plot line going through it, and has some good layers to it that made it interesting.
I think you're right. It has many layers. It stands up as just a very intriguing story about certain people in the Old West. Another thing about it is that it kind of debunks some of the myths attached to the Old West. I mean, the myth that the fastest, or the most notorious gunfighters were just the fastest and the fairest and the best.
Yeah.
Not really the case in this movie.
Probably not really the case in real life either. And the movie, and that was all inherent in the script, is the movie had has guys embellishing on stories as they go. The stories would embellish as they'd move right along, and it would. And then the journalist, the character of the journalist, would always be looking for the glamour aspect of it. And that's true in real life too. You see that. I mean, people think back in your own life, and you think of how you think back in an experience like being in the Army or something. You think of only the good times. You don't think of all the lousy times.
It's not a black hat, white hat Western at all. The villains have some good qualities, or so-called villains, and the heroes have some bad qualities. Very different in that way compared to the traditional Western, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. The hero being a bad guy who's been reformed, and the villain being a guy who's actually a pretty good guy. He just has some very dogmatic approach to law enforcement, and some strange ideas about slightly has a mean streak in him, but in his eyes, he's doing the right thing.
This is your 10th Western as a feature film, in an era supposedly when Westerns aren't that hip or aren't that successful. How come you keep making them? What is it about Westerns that you like?
I just have always liked them. I think you can make them hip if just by approaching good stories. There's always, it's a part of Americana that it's a sort of an art form that we can lay claim to, that doesn't emanate from Europe, even though, ironically enough, I gained most of my notoriety from Italian or European-made duplications of our art form, our genre of the Western. But there's always excitement about them. I think what happens is they're cyclical. People haven't seen them for a while, and maybe they come around and there's a new interest in them, what have you.
In this picture in particular, there's a lot of relevance, I think, for audiences in 1992. It's an interesting take on violence and conscience, morality. What do you think Unforgiven is saying to audiences today?
I think it's relevant to 1992, and the irony is that it just the script. I've had the script for a while, but it became more pertinent as the events of today have unfolded. I think I think they're probably they were relevant in those times, but they're just as relevant today. People are constantly. Life is not that simple as it has been depicted in the past in any kind of movie, and much less a Western.
What's it like directing yourself? Tricky to wear both hats?
It's a little tricky. I started doing it in 1970 with Play Misty, and the only reason I did it then is that was the only way I could get the job, is directing, is to be in a film. So I went ahead and did it, and I just got used to it over the years. I've done several films without being in it, and it's much easier. And it's much more pleasant, and I'll probably end up doing that more in the future. But in the case of Unforgiven, I liked the script very much. I had purchased it, and it's very hard to turn it over to somebody else's concept after you've invested that much time and effort in it.
Not only are you a director and a performer, but you're also a producer, a businessman. When you're looking at the various things that you do, director, actor, businessman, which are you best at?
I have no, I don't know. I never look at it that way, and I never think of what I'm best at or where's that. I think I do them all okay. Of whether I'm best at one or the other, I don't know. It would just depend on the individual project, the obstacles of that particular project, whether all four of those categories you mentioned. It would be some projects are easier and some of them are more difficult.
You've got a reputation of getting a lot on screen without an extravagant budget. Is that I know that you worked with Don Siegel, who had that reputation as well. Is that an important thing for you?
Well, Don did it out of necessity. He did it out of coming up with low-budget films, and I did too. I came up with the dollar films. A Fistful of Dollars was a low-budget film. So we were doing the same thing there in Europe, and we're doing the same thing back here. I've made some high-budget films, but the main thing to me is to get on film the most for what you put up. If a film costs $20 million and looks like it costs 10, then you're a failure. If it costs $10 million and looks like it costs 20, then that's quite successful. So the main thing is just to get what you set out to do. If you can make it at least look like what it costs, that's okay.
Throughout your career, at times, critics have not been kind. They've dismissed some of your work, but over time, your work seems to have proven itself, and there are revisionist critics now say Clint Eastwood is an auteur, in fact. Do you feel like you're getting the last laugh with some of these people?
I never think of it in terms of that. I think when I first started out in the dollar films, people were saying, the critics of that time were saying, well, who's this upstart, and what is he doing in this, and what's the idea? How dare these Italians make an American Western film, and who's this television actor hanging out? And then when I started directing films, people are going, we're not sure we accept him as an actor. What's he doing now? He's going to direct films. But I think what happened is, with the advent of cinema schools, which they never had when I started out, at least not in the way they have them today, everyone, including reviewers of stuff, have come up with much more knowledge and much more history of films. So I think nowadays people are approaching it a lot differently, and a lot of current reviewers have grown up more with me. Some of them dated to my films, or first dates, or whatever, some certain formative periods in their life. So I'm not an upstart to them. I'm somebody who's been there for them for a long time.
You're respectable now.
I don't know.
Will you ever win an Academy Award, do you think, for acting? Do you think
I
that
never
your kind
think
of work
about
is the kind of thing that gets recognized these days?
I never think in terms of that. I don't think in terms of I'm not doing films for awards. I'm doing them for because I enjoy doing them, and there's who knows. That's a different part of showbiz that I don't indulge in.
What kind of a kid were you? Did you want to be an actor when you were a kid?
I think every kid is an actor instinctively, but I didn't want to be one professionally. I wouldn't want to have to get up in front of people, but every kid acts within himself and lives out vignettes and what have you. But as far as the idea, would I be doing it professionally, I never suspected that.
Do you remember your first job, your first paying gig, and how much you got paid?
Well, I was my first job as an actor was a contract player at Universal, and I went under contract and sort of was a general contract player, and I got $75 a week. That's what it prorated out to, I think. They'd pay you for like 40 weeks a year, and it was great. I'd go in and do bits and stuff, but I was always paid the same amount regardless of whether I worked or didn't. So I'd go in and do a lot of bit parts and hang around and do looping and try to absorb as much knowledge as possible.
Seemed to pick up something along the way.
Well, if a good-looking one came along. Oh, no, I don't know. We're on another subject, I guess. But
It's great talking to you today. Thanks for the time, and best of luck with Unforgiven.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Clint.